Welcome everyone to today's session of Hot Topics in Nutrition, Self-Care for Caregivers, led by Dana Fryer. This program is hosted by the Blum Resource Center. Over at the Blum, we are grateful to the nutrition team for this continued partnership. The recording of this session will be posted on our Blum YouTube playlist and our Blum Digital Resource Center. For those of you watching live, if you have any questions related to today's program, please feel free to utilize the chat feature throughout the session. At the end of the session, those questions will be used to guide a Q&A. If you have any other questions or would like more information about resources and programs offered through the Blum, please visit our website, www.dana-farber.org/resource center, or you can email us at blum_center@dfci.harvard.edu. Thank you all for joining us. I will now pass the workshop over to Dana.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to give this lecture. My name is Dana Fryer. I'm a registered dietitian for Dana-Farber, working primarily out of our St. Elizabeth Brighton clinic, and I'm very excited to be presenting to you today on nutrition tips for caregivers. So in today's class, we'll be talking about everything from how to eat healthy to how to find trusted nutrition sources. So I want to start out this lecture with a reminder that you as the caregiver are so important, not only as a person, but also to the care team of your loved one. But a lot of the time with caregivers, I'm finding that caregivers are often putting the priority on their loved one, which is important. But if you're not prioritizing yourself and your health, there can be some health complications. A lot of the time we're seeing excessive weight gain, weight loss, as well as chronic diseases that are occurring that are preventable if you are taking care of your nutrition health. So do not be afraid to take the time to take care of yourself. It's very important. So the first thing to think about when you're thinking about taking care of ourselves, taking care of our bodies, is how to eat a healthy diet. Eating a healthy diet is one of the most important things that we can be doing to help our bodies and ourselves stay healthy. So when I'm going over healthy eating with both my caregivers and my patients in clinic, I really like to talk about this plating method, where we're dividing our plate into 3 different sections. So the first one is vegetables. So about 50% of your plate, we want to be non-starchy vegetables. So this can be your favorite vegetables. I promise it doesn't have to be kale. It could be kale, it could be spinach, it could be broccoli, it could be romaine lettuce. It can really be any vegetable that you want, but we want you having at least 50% of your meals to be vegetables. This is going to help to make sure that you're getting all the wonderful phytonutrients of the fruits and vegetables, but also they have lots of different vitamins and minerals that are really, really important for your health. And you'll hear dietitians say all the time, try to eat the rainbow. We want you to have a variety of colors, totally fine if you have a favorite fruit or vegetable, but eating a variety of colors is important because each different fruit and vegetable is giving us different minerals, and the colors are going to kind of help to tell you, that has something different than another color. Then we want you to have a protein with every single meal. So when you're thinking of a protein, ideally it should be a lean protein, such as chicken or fish, but it could also be something, like beans, tofu, and then trying to limit the red meat as much as possible. But this should make up a quarter of your plate. If you're kind of thinking about your portion size, it should be about the size of your palm. That's going to be about 3 ounces. A lot of us tend to overeat protein because we are thinking, oh, it's so important. More is better. But watching your portion size is important because excessive protein is excessive calories. And then we also want to be worried about our kidneys with excessive protein. And then the last quarter of your plate should be your carbohydrates. And especially in oncology and kind of across the whole kind of nutrition space, a lot of time we're demonizing carbs. And so I work with a lot of patients and families that are telling me they've cut carbs completely out of your diet, but we need carbohydrates in our diet. It's going to help to give you energy. It's going to help you to maintain stable blood sugar, but the quality is important. There's a really, really big difference between having some brown rice and having a soda. So when we're talking about that quarter of your plate being carbohydrates, we want them to be really high quality carbohydrates. So picking whole grains such as, farro, quinoa, brown rice, over, the white or refined versions. And then this is also where our starchy vegetables live. So starchy vegetables are going to include things like corn, potatoes, butternut squash, all of those, even though yes, they are a vegetable, but we're considering them as a starchy vegetable. So your plate can really be kind of made up of your favorite foods, but trying to kind of load up on the vegetables is really important. The other thing to be thinking about when we're thinking about the basics of nutrition is that you need to be fueling your body throughout the day. You want to kind of think about your body as a car. No gas is going to lead to fatigued, feeling tired and weak. So eating throughout the day is a great way to make sure that your energy levels are staying up, that your blood sugar is staying stable. And so I usually recommend kind of having 3 meals throughout the day. This looks different for everyone. If you're sitting there being like, Dana, I'm not really a big breakfast person, this does not need to be a full meal. This can be as simple as having, a little banana with peanut butter, but trying to do a little bit of carb and fruit in the morning is really great. If you're not a breakfast person, protein shake works just as well. And then having, a little bit of lunch, a little bit of dinner. A lot of the time with caregivers, I'm seeing, skipping breakfast, lunch between work, appointments, family, and then by the time you have dinner, you're really, really hungry. So you tend to overeat not only on dinner, but also nighttime snacking too. So working to kind of shift your plate to be more balanced and also have meals throughout the day is really, really important to make sure you're getting your nutrition on track. Next thing I want to talk about is being aware of health halos. So health halos are going to be labels that are put on food and their marketing that's designed to make you think that this food must be the best choice, must be the healthiest choice, when that isn't necessarily the case. So some common ones that I see are gluten-free, vegan, all natural, cold pressed, or like fresh pressed juice. And you just want to be careful because this might not be the healthiest choice. For example, with gluten-free, if you are sensitive to gluten or you have celiac disease, that you definitely do want to pick gluten-free. But because gluten is a really essential protein in kind of wheat products, kind of breads, pasta, things like that, baked goods, when you remove it, it can alter the structure and the composition of the food. So a lot of the time you're having to add back in extra sugar, extra fat, extra additives to the food that doesn't necessarily make it all of a sudden healthy. Sometimes it can be worse for you than kind of the regular version with gluten. So being mindful of that, don't just, start, say like, oh, I'm not eating bread, but I'm going to eat gluten-free bread. There's still carbs in there. There's still calories. So just being mindful. The same thing goes for vegan foods too. There's a lot of healthy vegan options. There's a lot of unhealthy vegan options. You want to be thinking about the quality, right? There's very different ingredients in something, like beans or tofu for a protein versus a very, very processed soy sausage, that's made to look like meat. So again, looking at the quality is important. With all natural, there's no regulation of this term. So it doesn't really mean anything, although it looks great on a product. And then with juices, a lot of the time I'm seeing, especially when patients are recently diagnosed with cancer, a really common gift is a juicer with the idea of, that fruit is so wonderful for us. But you need to remember that juice is still having a lot of sugar in it and the fibers taken out compared to if you just ate an orange on the side. So doing a juice cleanse, or just kind of drinking juices all the time isn't necessarily going to be the healthiest thing for you. To help navigate your healthy diet, a really important thing is to understand how to read the labels on the back of food, especially when you're at the store or if you're buying products online. So here's an example of a nutrition facts label, and it's helping us to tell a lot of really important things. And always when you're looking at a product, one thing you want to be thinking of is kind of what is the purpose of this? Am I adding it to a meal? Am I looking for calories? Am I looking for protein? Am I looking for a certain vitamin or mineral? What's the purpose on it? But things you really want to make sure you're focusing on when you're flipping over that label, take a look at the protein. A lot of foods are promoted as having, protein in them when they really don't have that much, maybe 1 or 2 grams. Also look at the calories. and think about, what's the purpose of this? A lot of the time, especially with like drinks, they're having a lot different calories than we think they are. So being aware and going, wow, that's 400. I didn't realize it was, or wow, that's only 100. I thought it was more. And then also watching the added sugar. The nice thing with the new nutrition labels that came out in 2017 is they now are going to show us how much added sugar is in the food. So you'll still see sugar, which is just, kind of total sugar, but then the added sugar is sugar that was extra kind of added to that product. So definitely keeping an eye on those ones is important. So let's do a little bit of a practice here so you guys can leave the lecture being pros on the nutrition label and looking at some things. So here's an example of a juice that I would commonly see someone drinking in clinic. It has some of those health halo words, right? Fresh, organic, pure, cold pressed, GMO, organic, that makes us go, okay, this looks like a very, very healthy choice. When we look at the calories, we can see that this has a lot more calories than you might think is in juice, right? Because with juice, you're thinking, oh, it's healthy. It's just, water and fruit. How many calories could it be? But, this is 240 calories. Then I would also take a look on this juice too at the carbs. So we can see it has a good amount of carbs. That's 54 grams total, no fiber, right? And fiber is going to be really helpful for maintaining our blood sugars, keeping us full. And then it has a lot of sugar in it from the oranges, which makes sense, and no added sugar. So that's great. That means there's no added sugar into it. But the protein is quite low. It's only 5 grams. So this one, is going to provide you hydration, going to provide you a lot of calories, but not really giving you a lot of protein. So let's compare it to something else that's similar but different. So this is a protein shake, common one I see people drinking. If we look at the front, we're seeing some buzzwords, right? 31 grams of protein. We're seeing this one's also non-GMO. We're seeing no added sugar. So again, lots of things on the label where the marketing might get you to pick it up. When we look at the back, we're saying, okay, it's 90% fruit juice. That's great. Calories, this is a caloric product, right? It's not that big. It's, 16 ounces, the size of a regular Poland Spring water bottle, with a lot of calories in it. Then we look at the carbs. So it has very similar amount of carbohydrates to the last drink, but it has, a little bit of fiber. But then a really big difference between the previous one and this one is it has a lot of protein. So while it has a lot of calories, you're getting a lot of protein. So this would be a better option if you were looking for a snack or you're looking for a meal replacement, because you're getting a lot of calories, but you're also getting a lot of protein, versus juice is a little bit more of an empty calorie too. As a caregiver, you probably have a very, very busy schedule between, helping the person you're caring for, work, kids, family. There's a lot going on. So here are some of my tips to help make sure that you are still able to eat healthy, even when you have a really busy schedule. So one thing to do is meal prep. And remember, meal prep doesn't need to be fancy. If you don't have fun little glass bento boxes, you are fine. Throw it in any Tupperware you have. But kind of setting aside like 2 hours in your week to just make big batches of things can be really, really helpful, because that's going to make sure you kind of have meals portioned and ready to go that you can easily throw in your bag to take to work or take to the hospital, or also to kind of give as dinners when you get home for a busy day. And when we're thinking about meal prep, you still want to have that balanced plate. We can see here, these meals, we have half of vegetable, we have some starches with our chickpeas, and then some protein with our meat as well. So this is going to be an example of, kind of having a balance. And remember, with meal prep, it does not need to be super duper fancy. There are a lot of great websites online where you can kind of type in meal prep, type in the ingredients you have, and it will give you ideas. But having kind of time set aside 1 day a week to just make a lot of things can just help make sure that you're taking the stress off preparing meals for yourself and your family and your loved one during the week. Another thing we need to remember too is that as much as we want to say, I'm going to make all my meals from scratch, I'm going to make them all at home, that sometimes really isn't realistic when you have so many other responsibilities and such a busy schedule. So do not be afraid to use convenience foods. And a lot of the time when I'm talking about convenience foods with my patients and their caregivers, they're thinking that I'm talking about, McDonald's and gas station snacks. And that's definitely not the case. When we're talking about convenience foods, it's really about foods that are going to make your life easier. So things that these can include are meal services. It can also be prepared meals, a rotisserie chicken from Stop and Shop, prepared soups, different things that you get from the store. That would all be convenience foods. Frozen meals, this could be a meal service or also a frozen meal from the grocery store. Protein shakes are a really great thing, especially on the go. You can buy them in bulk at Costco. They can be really convenient. Also, restaurants and takeout too. You can be, picking up food, having it delivered if that's going to help make something realistic. Do not be afraid to do that. And then also just having snacks at home, ready to go, things you don't have to make, can just make it really realistic for you to be eating throughout the day. So a lot of my patients and their caregivers have had great luck kind of utilizing meal programs. And you've probably heard about a few different meal programs out there. There's a variety of different ones, all sorts of different companies. Some of them, they're sending you the ingredients and you're making it. Some of them, they're sending you fresh or frozen meals. But doing a meal program can be a really great way to, again, take some stress off of having to cook every single meal for yourself, your family, the person you're caring for. One thing to kind of keep in mind is that not all meal programs are going to be created equal. I spend a lot of time going through these for my patients and families to kind of help them find the best one. And the amount of times that the meals aren't even balanced to me is crazy. So keep in mind with this, you want to keep in mind your balanced plate. You're going to see that's a theme throughout this lecture, but make sure it's something that's going to have all those macronutrients you need. Also think about preparation time. If your biggest barrier is, kind of having the time to cook and clean up the kitchen, do not get one where it's like the pre-portioned ingredients, that you have to make. Might be better for you to get one that you just pop in the oven or microwave really, really quick. Make sure it has a protein. Also trying to shoot for whole grains most of the time. Watch the sodium. A lot of the meal kits tend to be high sodium. So just watching the sodium on them. Make sure they're using fresh ingredients. Most of them do, but again, just something to watch on their website. Look at the calorie and protein needs. Make sure they're not too high, not too low. And then also the cost. The cost really varies kind of program to program. It also varies with how frequently you're doing it too. So you want to make sure that you're doing something that's kind of realistic for your diet, but also your budget too. There's also many different meal programs that are available for patients. So again, if you are struggling with getting, the meals for your loved one or person you're caring for, you can definitely look into these programs. The two I use most frequently are Meals on Wheels and then Community Servings. Both these will provide delivered meals to the home. And this is something too, where if you're interested in learning, if you're eligible, learning more about it, definitely reach out to your clinic's resource specialist because they'll be able to tell you what different programs you are eligible for. Now, being a caregiver for someone going through cancer treatment, you are probably spending a lot of time in the hospital. And again, we always want to be like, oh, I'm going to pack a lunch, a healthy snack. Sometimes that's not realistic. So here are my tips for navigating the cafeteria. So great place to grab lunch or dinner, is going to be the salad bar. This is one of the best places to get lots of fresh vegetables in your diet. And we still want to keep the plating method in mind here. So you want to start out with a base of vegetables. Could be romaine lettuce, could be those green peppers, could be tomatoes. But starting out with the majority of your salad being vegetables too. And then making sure you're adding a protein. Could be chicken, could be tofu, could be beans. Adding some sort of protein. And then putting in a little bit of carbs. So it could be croutons, it could be rice, it could be farro, it could be grabbing a little roll on the side or a bag of chips, but trying to kind of have that balanced plate mindset, because this is going to be a meal that's going to help to keep you full and keep you nourished. You can also head to the hot bar. I know that one tends to always have like really fun things, to jazz it up. Again, keeping the plating method in mind. Pick the vegetable. There's always a vegetable at the hot bar. So make sure that you get that to help make sure you're getting 50% of your vegetables. If there's a vegetable you don't like, or it doesn't look that good, you can always go to the salad bar and grab a little side salad. Try to pick whole grains whenever possible as your grain. Also watch the portion sizes too. A lot of time they're giving big scoops. So if you're noticing that, you can always say, can I just have half a scoop? Again, trying to keep it to a quarter of your plate. You want to pick the lean meats whenever possible too. So, chicken, fish, try to avoid the really fatty, saturated fat foods like pork and beef. And then a lot of the time they're coming with like a heavy sauce. So either skip it or just ask for a little bit on the side. So you're still getting the flavor, but you're not getting all the additional calories of that sauce. The sandwich station is a great one to go to, especially if you want to go and take it back up into the clinic or into your into the room of the patient. And we still want to keep the plating method in mind here. Add vegetables to your sandwich. Remember, when we're thinking about tomatoes, lettuce, onion, those still count as vegetables. When you're picking your bread, put it on whole wheat wrap. Whole wheat bread is always going to be the best choice. Picking fresh over deli meat is always recommended. Deli meat has a lot of preservatives and additives in it. So always, if fresh, chicken salad, tuna salad, chicken breast is available, that's always going to be the best choice. And then try not to get chips every time. A lot of the time, depending on, the site you're at, they might include chips with it, but see if you can kind of swap it out, for a fruit or do a side salad at the salad bar. Besides working to kind of have a healthy, balanced diet, another way you want to be kind of looking at your health and make sure you're taking care of yourself is monitoring your weight. There's going to be people too with kind of the stress and the busyness of being a caregiver for someone with cancer. You're going to see some people will have unintentional weight gain, and then some people will experience unintentional weight loss. So it's not surprising to see people have unintentional weight gain when you're dealing with the stress of caring for someone with cancer. And this is why it's so important to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And one of the reasons why it's not uncommon to kind of hear people say, I'm stress eating, is because when we're eating high calorie, high sugar, high fat foods, this is triggering the reward center in our brain. It makes us feel happy. It makes us feel safe. So a lot of time people are turning to food just to help them cope. Another thing you want to think of too is that your calorie needs are probably very different than the person you're caring for who has cancer. With cancer, we're recommending typically high calorie, high protein. So if you're eating the same exact meals as them, you might be gaining weight, where with our oncology patient, we want them to gain weight because we don't want them to be malnourished. But if you're kind of gaining weight with them and you didn't need to gain weight, that can put you at risk for unintentional weight gain. And we're concerned about unintentional weight gain because this increases your risk of diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, and even several types of cancer. So really the best thing to be doing is to monitor yourself. Step on the scale every once in a while, but also you can look in the mirror, look at your face, look how your clothes are fitting. And if you're noticing that you're gaining a little bit of weight, definitely reach out to your doctor and kind of let them know what's going on so they can get you back on track. If you're finding that you're stress eating and really kind of craving sweet foods, here are some healthier alternatives. Fruit is always a great choice. You can throw it in a smoothie. You can top it on top of yogurt. Yogurt is another good one, right? Try to skip the ice cream, go in for yogurt, a little fruit, a little chocolate chip on top. You can make it really fun. Trail mix is one of my favorite things to recommend. You can kind of put sweet coconut in it, or you can always do like raisins or M&Ms. But again, kind of takes a lot of the sugar out of it, and still it's giving you some of the antioxidants and vitamins and minerals of the nuts. And then a smoothie is a great way to do about it. You can be adding in all sorts of different flavors, whatever flavor ice cream you're craving. You can make this coffee, you can make this cookies and cream, but you're just reducing the excess calories and excess sugar you're getting, where if you went for a frap. You also want to be thinking about too, if you're turning to food to help relieve your stress, getting involved in some non-food stress relief. So things that I've had my patients' caregivers do is joining support groups to talk about the stress is really helpful, or seeing a therapist or counselor. Also adding in some stress relief activities, yoga, painting, walking, exercise, just to help make sure that you're not only relying on kind of having those high calorie foods as a coping mechanism. Just as people gain weight, there's also people in the category of losing weight. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring yourself for weight loss, because weight loss can be just as harmful and detrimental as unintentional weight gain. So you want to look for things, have your portions been decreasing? Have you been skipping meals? Are your clothes fitting a little bit differently? And kind of monitoring your weight and making sure that you're not having, excessive weight loss. So when we're talking with our patients about kind of concerning weight loss, these are some of kind of the percentages and timeframes we're looking at too. So if you're noticing that your weight is really kind of steadily going down week to week, month to month, this is something that you definitely want to make sure you're bringing up with your doctor so that they can help you to make sure that you're eating enough. And besides weight loss, some other signs that you might not be eating enough to fuel your body would be dizziness, nausea, fatigue. These are all signs from your body that you're having hypoglycemia or low blood sugar and need to eat a little something. If you're noticing skipping meals, smaller portions, a lot of the time you're so busy that you might not even notice that you're doing this, which is why those tips at the front of the lecture, kind of having meal prep, using other foods can be really helpful. If your clothes fit differently, or you're noticing your face is a little skinnier or some bones sticking out in the mirror, that's a sign that you're not eating enough. Or if you're getting your labs done and your doctor's noticing, oh, your blood sugar is low or your electrolytes low, that's also telling you that you're not getting enough to eat. Or if activities that you normally did no problem, walking the dog, going up the stairs, if all of a sudden those are becoming more difficult for you, that's another sign that you're not eating enough. The last thing we'll focus on in this lecture today is talking about where to find credible nutrition advice. So having access to the internet now, everyone always loves to kind of give their 2 cents about nutrition. It's definitely a hot topic to talk about online and social media, but you want to be careful that you're getting your nutrition information from credible sources. So a great place to look is definitely any Dana-Farber Cancer Institute resources. They have a really great health library on their website that you can type in nutrition, look at different topics. You can also listen to other lectures from the Blum Center about nutrition. There's some really great previously recorded lectures too, to kind of hear about more hot topics. Registered dietitians are going to be great sources of information. There are always a registered dietitian available at any of the Dana-Farber sites. So if your loved one hasn't met with one yet and you'd like them to, definitely let the office know and they can get that set up. Also, talking with your primary care physician or your oncologist is another great source to get tailored nutrition information. And if you do want to look at research papers online, definitely make sure that they are peer reviewed, because that's going to mean that other researchers, other clinicians have reviewed them and kind of asked their questions and made sure there's no errors in it. And that's a reliable source of information. Well, thank you so much to the Blum Center for inviting me to come to this lecture, and I hope that you all found it very helpful.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana. This was an amazing presentation. I definitely took a lot away and learned a lot about how we can support our caregivers. One of the biggest things I think you can take away is that by watching this webinar, you are taking care of yourself for however long this is, 20, 30 minutes, you're taking a break, focusing on yourself. So I think it'd be great if you could start implementing some of these tips, such as meal prep. When I think about meal prep, I try to do that for myself once a week, and it's a great time where I can take a step back, plug my headphones in, listen to a podcast, and just get all my meals done for a week. Or if you have loved ones in the house, such as kids, or even your loved one that's going through cancer and they have enough energy to help you out, it could be a nice bonding activity to be able to stop focusing so much on everything going on around you and focus right on the meal in front of you that can sustain you for the next week. So thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, send us some emails. You can leave some comments if you have any questions, and have a great day.